Whether you rent or own a home, we all likely have nightmare stories about home maintenance, or what I like to call home cringe moments. Join me, your host, Katie Shahan, for the Yarlow Home Cringe Show. See what home cringe-worthy stories we have for you each week as we talk with local home service pros, learn best practices for winterizing your home, or what to look for after a hailstorm. Listen to the Yarlow Home Cringe Show every Sunday at 2 p.m. or on your favorite podcast app.
Ghost Stories Beyond returns to Billy's Bar and Grill in Anoka October 4th at 6:30 p.m. Join Char Savoy and myself, Greg Bakun, as we host our special guest, Tom Maurer, who is the Minnesota State Director of MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. So come on out and ask lots of questions about UFOs, UAPs, and of course, aliens. It's $10 a ticket to join in, and we'll see you October 4th at 6:30 p.m. at Billy's in Anoka. Don't forget, burgers will be half price.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Partly cloudy tonight with a low of 59, then more sunshine on Tuesday with a high of 78. Scotch Mama's Hot Barbecue offers a huge taste of selections like baby back ribs and pulled pork sandwiches out of a little place. Scotch Mama's is located just a block west of I-35W off of West Diamond Lake Road in South Minneapolis. Visit their website at scotchamamas.com. Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host, guest, random reptoid, or chupacabra may not necessarily reflect those of AM 950 Radio, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Now, it's time to step into the unknown. There are things people experience but never talk about. A shadow moving in the corner, flickering of the lights, a disembodied voice. We invite you to talk with us. Share your story, share your experience, because this isn't just your story. This is our story. This is GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.
And this is GhostBox Radio on AM 950, where every night we talk about the paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. My name is Greg Bakun. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. Before we get too far into it, for those of you that are watching us on Facebook, you'll see that I do not exist. There is someone broke the camera here over the weekend, so there is some reason. Maybe it's a good thing. I don't know, but I'll bring in my own tomorrow. You can't get away from me that easily, folks, on Facebook. You'll have to look at me somehow, some way. I guarantee it. Yeah, it's just like, how can you break a camera? I don't understand. But before we get to Jay, I have a confession to make. I am very hard on this station when it comes to the way that the ants have invaded and the rabid rabbits outside, the scary turkeys that are outside, the snakes that are at the door, the spiders that are crawling around in here, the one that came down in front of me on Wednesday last week. I'm very honest about it. The great popcorn incident of 2023, I had talked about that a great deal. Well, last week I was here to help a new sponsor record some spots, and I had a bottle of ginger ale, and I put the cap on very loosely on it, and I'm out in the common area, and I pick up the bottle, and it slips out, and because I didn't put the cap on all the way, it all fell out, and the whole thing fell to the ground and made a huge mess, and you can't tell. I mean, I'm going to be honest. You can't tell on the carpet. I mean, you take that however you want to. But the point is that I have now added to the number of stains that are on the carpet in the basement of the studio of AM 950, and I have to come to you. I have to come clean about it. I guess maybe that's not the right word for it, but nevertheless, that's what I had to do. So it's been on my mind, as you can imagine, for the past 5 days, and I had to come clean and tell you all about this because I know you would want to know how messy the carpet is at AM 950. So that being said, we're going to do something that we've not done here before. I am very excited. Might be kind of a strange word because of what we're going to be talking about tonight and the next couple nights is actually very, very serious. And I had spoken with Jay Yaple in 2016 when I was on a different network doing radio. And he had told me about the house he was living in, the built in 1771, and it was in Enfield, Connecticut. And we had a conversation about what was going on there. I think that this is a important thing to talk about. Jay has agreed, and the thing about Jay, and we'll talk more about it when we get him on here in a second, is there's been a number of years I asked him to come on the program, and he had refused because I think they were still dealing with it. And one of the things that you learn when you're dealing with stuff like this is that even if it looks like it's gone, until you really know what's going on, you don't talk about it. You don't rehash it. Just talking about it rehashes it. He uses the word demon. And most of the time I'd be like, are you sure, to different people? With the Enfield house, this is a story that is very, very complex and very frightening. And, you know, we don't tell this story tonight to frighten people specifically, but the realities of what this all is. And we're doing it over 3 nights, each night having a different approach to it. But this is worth it. And we've been trying to get this going for a while. I am so happy. Jay has been very patient on his end with stuff with me. So I'm appreciative of that too. Jay, welcome to GhostBox Radio.
Welcome, Greg. Thanks for having me back. And it's good to be back after all these years trying to get back and forth. And we finally aligned with the stars, and we're here now.
Literally all these years. First of all, I also want to say, anybody who's listening tonight and you are watching us online, feel free to put questions into the comments. Jay is happy to answer questions. This is a masterclass on what to do in a situation like this when there is something very, very, very dark in the house that you do not know what it is. And he has spent a great deal of time, him and his family, to figure out what it is. And, you know, Jay, so I re-listened to our episode from 2016 to kind of get an idea of stuff. And before we really get into it all, I have to say, and I noticed this on our phone call last Thursday, you sound happy. You sound alive. You sound really good. If you ever have a chance to listen again to that episode that we did in 2016, you clearly were in a different place emotionally.
Yes, we came a long ways. We came from battling something unknown on a daily basis to now we believe we have that one entity gone. Mm-hmm. So it does get still hectic around here, but you have a sense of peace knowing that this entity is gone. But we're always, it's always in the back of our mind that it could come back, and we have to watch for signs in case if it does come back.
So we'll get to what it is in due course. I think that the purpose of tonight, and Jay, let me know if you agree, is like we tell this. You tell us the story of what led you to where you are now, and tonight we were kind of talk about what's been going on, what had been going on in that house when you bought it. And you bought it in 2006, didn't you?
Yes, we bought it in the fall of 2006, and we had no idea of what was waiting for us within the walls or in the house or everywhere.
So why don't you walk through with us a little bit, and we kind of connected a little bit later. So Jay, I may have to interrupt you for a commercial break, but we still have about 12, 13 minutes before that happens. So let's just start at why you even got the house to begin with.
Okay, I'll start from the very beginning. I was looking for a house. actually it was in Massachusetts. We actually lived in Northampton, Mass.
Mm-hmm.
And my father had called me, and he turned 80 years old, and he didn't want to be alone. So we moved in with him. We rented an apartment up above him, and we were looking for our own place. Elko was pregnant, and where I was working as a manager, and I was kind of like interfacing between the property management of a high-rise building in Springfield and a mechanical company. So I was like the in-between guy, like the facility manager. I kind of handle all the different things. So in the process, I was friends with the property manager, and I was telling her I'm trying to find a house, but the real estate market is so sky high that houses that were going for 100,000, we're going for 200, and houses that were going for 200 are now up to 600,000. So she said to talk to her husband, John, that he was liquidating a lot of his properties because he wanted to start up a large car dealership in Springfield, Mass, and he needed a lot of cash on hand. So
Sure.
she said to go and talk to John, that there was a house in Enfield, and there was some other properties. So at first we were like, I don't know. But when we came here, John said, listen, he goes, I know you and Elka. He goes, listen, he goes, the place needs a lot of work, but he goes, I did all the high ticket items. He goes, already. He goes, I put a new roof on, all new electrical, all new windows. He goes, Jay, he goes, you're in construction. He goes, you can do all the cosmetic, if there's any plumbing, electrical, you want to move walls, whatever. He goes, you can use it, and start out as your first home. He goes, I'll give you a really good deal.
Mm-hmm.
So as we were looking at it, I'm like, well, what kind of deal? I see, because right now I'm thinking to myself, this house is easily at least 300,000, even in the rough shape it is. It's in Connecticut, and people who know who live in the state, houses are expensive. And he just turned around and he says, you know what, I'll give you a really good deal. He goes, how's 165?
Wow.
And I was like, even in a rough shape, my mind's going back and forth. If I can fix it up and things like that, it's going to be worth something, So we came back 3 times. We looked at it 3 times, and Elka's like, she had that mother's intuition, I guess. She just said, hey, look it. I don't like it. She goes, there's something wrong with it. And I said, Elka, I said, we can't afford another house. I said, listen, I said, some paint, some drywall, I'll keep working on it, and we can use this as a stepping stone. So I had convinced her, Greg, to move into here.
Yeah.
And the warning signs started coming in really fast. I'll start with, for example, like on our 3rd time coming here, we met at different locations. I was working, like I said, in Springfield. She was still working in the medical field. And we drove and we met here, and we looked around the house, and she said, are you really sure, Jay, you can do this? And, as most typical guys, like, sure, no problem. This is nothing. I won't sleep. I'll work 24 hours a day. But I said, I said, no problem. So on the way out, she said, I'll close up the door. And I went out to my vehicle and towards the driveway. And I heard this loud scream, Jay, help me. And as I turned around, I seen her arms go flying behind her back. As I'm running over to her, my training before I got into the construction field, I did some things. So I ran over, and I'm watching how her arms went flying behind her back. I'm trying to get to her and trying to save her and the babies. But at the same time, I said, someone shoved her. I said, people don't fall like that.
Yeah.
And I'm running, I'm scanning the house, and as fast as I could. I finally got down to her, and she finally, it's always like there's a guardian angel. She rolled right on her arm, and that's what saved her and the babies. And she was really shaken up, and I rushed her to Bay State Medical. And while we were in there, they were checking her out, and my mind's scanning who was in the house, who pushed her. I wasn't thinking it was a ghost. I'm thinking, the house was vacant for a while. Maybe there's hidden tunnels. This is an old neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's from the 1700s. I have no idea. So when, she came around and she was, and stuff, I said, what happened? She goes, oh, I fell. She goes, I think I fell. But she goes, it really felt like someone shoved me. And she goes, I didn't see anything there. So we just we were more worried about the pregnancy and getting her going. And we ended up going forth and buying the house. And we should have ran at that point.
Do you regret it? Do you regret buying the house? I know we're kind of jumping around here a little bit.
I do, Greg. I still this day, you can ask my kids, anybody, whenever we go out on vacations or we go out at night, coming back from dinner, I never said, oh, home sweet home. Like when I pull it in the driveway, I said, oh, I'm home. And the kids like, oh, Dad, is our home. But I said, I never said once, oh, we're home sweet home, because after 16 years, 17 years, I never felt like this was my house. I always felt like I'm renting it from somebody that, it's an awful feeling to actually live in a house that you're fixing up knowing you're not welcomed here,
So a couple things. First of all, your wife had twins.
Yes.
She's pregnant with twins. And then the house, before we start heading off to break here, what we said at the top, but I think it's worth saying again, the house was built in 1771. It is older than the United States of America.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
What's that, Greg?
I just said unbelievable.
Yeah,
it's just a crazy thing. Jay, why don't we do this? Because we want to get into more of what's happening at the house. And I want to make sure that I don't keep interrupting you with it. So I'm going to go ahead. We're going to take a break here. When we come back, we're going to get into more of what's going on in that house with his brother and other nasty things that were going on. This is quite the story to listen to. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. Have you ever wanted to see a real Masonic lodge or visit a beautiful hotel from the 1800s? GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun, Charvinity, bring you a weekend of paranormal investigations in Rush City, Minnesota. Starting Friday, September 22nd at the historic Grant House and continuing into Saturday, September 23rd at the Jasper Masonic Lodge, we have a lot of options for you to join in on this event. Go to charvinity.com/event-list for full details.
Fall is here and it's the season of changes. But you know what doesn't change? The fun and excitement at the National Eagle Center in Wabasha. Pack up the family for a perfect day trip and take a drive to Wabasha to join the celebration during their Soar Fall Flight Festival happening September 23rd and 24th. They're highlighting fall migration along the Mississippi River Flyway and celebrating Native American cultures and their connections to eagles. You'll meet the live eagle ambassadors, catch an exciting program in the beautiful Riverfront Amphitheater, and enjoy a front row seat to fall migration. You can explore Native and Indigenous cultures by visiting the exhibitor booths from Effigy Mounds National Monument, Indigenous artist Inkpa Manny, and Native American craftsman Dick Mindikowski. Plus, meet live birds from the Midwest Peregrine Society. Register for an unforgettable eagle viewing trip or behind-the-scenes experience and enjoy seasonal arts and crafts for all ages. It's a fall party with the Eagles, and you're invited. Get all the details online at nationaleaglecenter.org/soar and schedule your Eagle Fun today.
If you own a holistic or metaphysical business and are looking to expand, then you need to be listed on metamorphosisconnections.com. It's a network where you can grow with like-minded practitioners and reach new clients. Metamorphosisconnections.com is an online directory you need to list yourself and your business. Our platform makes it easy for you to create listings of your products and services. You can also choose to list your classes, events, and so much more. Metamorphosisconnections.com helps you create weekly and monthly promotional ads targeted towards your potential clients and promotes them for you via social media and newsletter. There are clients searching for your specialty right now. Let us help them find you. Start your listing today so you can share your own unique gifts and talents by finding the level of membership that best fits your needs. Let us help you reach your clients that are searching for what you do. Visit metamorphosisconnections.com and sign up today.
So you may have heard that commercial for that event that we're going to have next week over in Rush City. It's of the Grand House and the Jasper Masonic Lodge. We just want to let you know that the individual tickets for doing the Grand House, those are sold out. So all that's available is the Masonic Lodge, which is going to be pretty amazing as well. That's not been investigated by anyone except Char and myself one time before. Tickets are available, charvinity.com/event-list. It's very easy to find on there. We are talking with Jay Yaple, the owner of the Enfield Demon House in Enfield, Connecticut. This is a 3-night event, folks. We are talking about this house over 3 nights in different perspectives. So there's a lot to talk about here. And I really wanted to make sure that we gave Jay some time to talk about what's going on in the house. And we just kind of left off that Jay did buy the house, obviously, but I mean, that's part of the story, because this is when things start to go bad, right?
Yes.
So go ahead, Jay. Why don't you let us know? I might be jumping here. So if there's more you want to put in between, what I kind of go to immediately is what happened with your brother the first time that he went in to help you.
Okay. Well, we came in, when we bought the house, I asked my brother and other friends to come in, and we started painting, and my brother was here. Now, my brother, I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. He was 6'2". He was a big guy. He was ex-Marine for 8 years. And he didn't believe in God. He was more like Carl Sagan. He had to see it to believe it. He never talked about God or anything like that. I used to call him a gentle giant.
Oh.
And so one day we were upstairs on the renter side where I'm at right now. And he was painting, and I told him, like, I used to have like a little spiel. I used to tell people that when I left, if anything ever happens while I'm gone, just go outside, take a break, smoke a cigarette, and wait till I come back.
Yep.
So, and Cliff wasn't afraid of anything. He, like I said, he could handle himself no matter what. And I said, I'm going to go for some more paint. I'll see you back. And I said, Cliff, anything happens, just go outside. He laughed, like, ha ha, yeah, okay, right, whatever. He goes, I don't believe in ghost stories, but you do. That's how he was. So I left. I came back, and he's outside. He's smoking a cigarette, and he was shaking. And I'm like, what's wrong? He says, well, he goes, after listening to your crazy stories, he says, all of a sudden the lights started to go off all over the house in different sequences. And he says, I'm thinking, well, it's a power, something to do with the fluctuation. I go, I don't know. But he goes, I decided to come outside and smoke a cigarette. Well, that wasn't all what happened.
He didn't say the truth. He didn't say the truth, right?
Yeah, he didn't say the truth. I think he didn't want to scare me. And he was... he never spoke about it. Now, I'm going to jump forward and kind of tell you what happened to him a little bit. Then I'll go back and I'll go into the how things really got crazy here.
Okay.
So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit so I can stay on my brother Cliff. Well,
sounds good.
After a few years went by in 2010. 2010 was an awful year for us. I mean, people think, owning a haunted house, it's just, it's all spooky. Well, we took a toll too. We didn't escape this. In that fall, I'm going to jump around. In that fall, we ended up refinancing the house through a guy I met. He happened to be a attorney, really great guy. He used to teach softball down in Avon, Connecticut. Well, that year we refinanced, but I'll get back to that story. And that was in the fall of 2009, and I was going to go call him up. He invited me to come over to his Christmas party, and he was just a really fun guy, this attorney. So I told him I couldn't. I told him because I got still like toddlers and I'm getting ready for Christmas. So the Christmas came and went, New Year's came and went, and my brother came over for Christmas, and who would believe that would be the last time I would ever see him alive? A few months went by, and he called me, and he was really serious, and he says, what are black shadows? He goes, they're evil, right? And he almost floored me because I never heard him use the word evil. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I tried to play it off a little bit, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And he said, he goes, I saw three black shadows in my life. He goes, maybe at mom's house, I'm not really sure. And he says, and I didn't tell you the truth. He goes, that day at your house, I was painting the doorway. And he said, all of a sudden, I seen this humongous black shadow come down the stairway through the attic. And I stepped aside, and he walked in front of me, and he went across, and he blocked out the light. And I've seen that before. And it went into the wall. And that's what shook him up. That's why he was shaking. And then he said, and now, he says, in my condo where he lived in Northampton, was on the second floor. He had a balcony, and he was a huge sports fan, and he had a humongous flat screen TV when they came out. And he says, I'm watching the game, and he goes, I'm having a few drinks, and all of a sudden, through the sliding glass doors, this big black shadow came and blocked out the TV and just stood right in front of me. Oh. And he said, I didn't know what to do. He goes, and then all of a sudden, it just left. And he wanted to know what they were. So I tried to explain to him. And then things got really busy with work. May was coming up. It was going to be our anniversary. We were going to, it was Mother's Day. And I was getting ready for spring. So Elka came home. She ended up leaving what she was doing in the medical field, and she started working for a private school. She actually wrote and taught the medical assisting program for them there. They hired her when she went back to work. So she was working, and she had graduation at night. And she said, hey, she says, your brother called and left a message. She goes, it sounds really serious. You better call him. I said, well, maybe he was drinking. I said, I'm not sure. I said, so the next day I listened to it, and it was really weird because he always would say, hey, Jay, give me a call. Well, this time he said, Jay, Elka, anyone, please call me.
Desperate, huh?
And that was, it was like really concerning. And that week, it just got busy. So I left a message on his phone. And then on that Friday, I was actually going back to I went back to school. I was going back to college, and I took some time off from work. And I was doing the kitchen over, and my niece called me and said, Uncle Jay, I got really bad news. And I'm like, well, what's going on? And she says, I need you to sit down. And I'm like, what's going on? And she said, Cliff's gone. She goes, your brother's passed away. And I'm like, I could not comprehend. I was like, no. I said, I just left him a message, and so that started out on something. I'm a person of answers. You get me investigating somebody, or in my mind, I'm starting to go on and zeroing on somebody. I'm not going to stop till I get the answers I need in my mind to satisfy me. So, since he died alone, they brought him to Boston, and they had to call up the VA because I guess he was in rough shape. I don't want to go in details, but I had actually called up Boston and got through to the medical examiner, and I was asking questions. And so I finally said, listen, I said, can you do me a favor and talk to me? I said, I told her what I did in the past. So she says, as a courtesy, she says, I'm going to just give you some information. She goes, it would be a yes or no. I said, well, did my brother die from alcoholism? She said, no. I said, did he aspirate? Because I said, that's usually happens if you drink and you pass out. She said, no. And she said, at this time, she goes, I'm going to have to rule your brother's death as inconclusive. She goes, I have no idea on how your brother died. He didn't die from alcoholism. he didn't die from aspiration. She goes, I can't find any drugs in his body. She goes, so I turned the conversation around to more of like, now I'm asking questions like, you tell me in 2010, you can't tell me how somebody dies. And she says, listen, I really don't know. She goes, I got some more tests coming back, but as of 2023, I still don't know how my brother died.
Were you at the time that we originally spoke? Were you keeping that close to your chest? I mean, obviously, you have every right to, but I just don't ever remember that part of it.
Yeah, no, I don't think I said that deeply into it.
Yeah,
That really that affected me because he was my best friend, you know, and we were both veterans. I actually served in the Army and I crossed over the Navy, so I have a soft spot for veterans, you know, and him being my brother and knowing what we both went through, and he helped me out through the year, especially when I came home. He really you know, he really helped me get grounded. You know, I went through some rough times, so he grounded me, and so it was hard when I lost him. It was like losing my best friend. Everything. It really messed me up. So I didn't talk about it. I still. It was hard.
Do you? I mean, and let me know if you don't want to talk anymore about this part of it. But do you think the house had something to do with this?
You know what? People are gonna maybe laugh, but I think it did, and I'm gonna explain the reason why.
Yeah.
And that's why I mentioned my friend, the attorney. And what I'm going to tell you guys is this sounds unbelievable. This really happened. The attorney, when that happened, when Cliff passed away, Elka's dog that she had from Germany, that she held close to her because it was the only connection she had to her father, went into, woke up all twisted, and she brought him to the vets in Northampton, Mass. And the doctor, Baron, he said, leave the dog with me. And he said, I'm going to see if I can try doing something for it. And Elka was distraught. And because she's like, this is my last connection to Germany. Well, again, Elka came home from work in tears. And she said, we have to go to Northampton. We have to put Mandy to sleep. And I was in tears. I just lost Cliff like 2 weeks before, and now Elka's dog. But now it gets worse. As I'm walking out the door, the phone rang, and Elka said, "Leave it," and I said, "I always go by my intuition." And I said, "I can't." I said, "This is an important phone call." She said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "No, this is important." I said, "I have to get this."
You just
knew it. I grabbed it. Yeah. And I grabbed it, and it was my nephew, and he was working up in Canada. And he says, "Uncle Jay," he goes, "I got bad news." And I says, "Mike," I said, don't be playing any jokes, because ever since we were little, we always played jokes on each other. And some of the jokes were really sick, what we played on each other. So I said, "You know what?" I said, "Not right now." I said, "I got to go put Elka's dog to sleep." And he said, "Uncle Jay, you got to sit down." He goes, "Mom's gone." I'm like, "What?" I lost my sister. Now, my sister Charlene was much older than I was. The way that, you know, in the days like the way my mom had children, her first child was born, and then 8 years later it was my brother Cliff, and then my sister Cindy, then me. So my brother was actually 10 years older than I was, and my oldest sister was actually 18 years older than I was. And my other sister, Cindy, was only 3 years older than I was. So I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Your mom's gone." He goes, "Yeah." He says, "I just got the call." And he says, "I'm coming back to the States." And he says, "I'll give you more details." He goes, I'm so sorry." He goes, "I didn't want to call you." And I said, "No, Mike." I said, "That's your mom." So what I do know about this is she was sitting in her chair with a plate of food in her hand, and her eyes were wide open when she died. So however she passed, it was like that. I mean, she didn't, you know, it's my family, so it's hard to talk about, but, you know, I've seen a lot of people die, and she didn't keel over. Nothing happened. There was like, and I just said, this is, you know, it was awful. So I didn't want to press the family and stuff like that. I just said, okay. I went numb, and I was like numb. I lost my brother, my Elka's dog, and my sister Charlene within 3 weeks, and they were strange behaviors because it wasn't like they got, it wasn't like they were sick. They had cancer. Something happened to them. They didn't. It's not like they were hit by a car. Nothing. They were just gone. So as that's happening, as I'm just getting over it, I get a phone call. And he says, "Are you Jay Yaple? And is your wife Elka Yaple?" I said, "Yeah." And he says, "I'm handling the estate of attorney Michael, blah, 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 blah." And I'm like, what? And, I'm like, wait a minute, this is getting stranger. And I said, "Did Mike put you up to this or something really sick?" And he said, "No, Jay." He says, "Really?" He goes, "Mike passed away." He says he was teaching softball in the fall of 2009. I believe it was October. Now, this is right after he helped us refinance a house into a different mortgage. And there's a story behind that, too. And I could go on for days talking about really weird events. And I guess he was teaching softball, and he had a massive heart attack and died.
Oh, my goodness.
So I was like, you know what? 2010 really sucked. Now I lost my brother, Elka's dog, my sister Cindy, and a good friend of mine. So I was really, that year really was awful. And but that had led up, and the reason why I said I believe it might be connected to the house, because in that fall, after I got laid off from a job I was working at due to there was some severe cutbacks.
Yeah.
And I actually was happy. I was just working nonstop. And I was running at the time. I was running two large buildings. I was running all the HVAC, all the maintenance. I had guys under me, and I was just like, you know what? I got little kids here. I'm running around like, it was crazy. And then on top, I'm building a house, and I was this was insane, So I when they laid me off, I said, I'm going to go back to college. And the funny thing is, not to everybody's approach. The funny thing was, I wanted to become a male nurse. I love helping people. I've always been there, and even in the military, I was the first guy in. I'm going to run in. No matter if I'm going to be hit by a ton of bullets. No fear. I was the guy. I wanted to help people. So I said, I'm going to become a male nurse. So unemployment said, you know what? If this is what you want to do, we'll send you to school. But the lady looked at my resume. She looked at me. She goes, are you out of your mind? She goes, I'm looking at your resume. And she goes, you know what? She goes, I want you to go over to this college, and she goes, I want you personally to talk to this guy. He runs the manufacturing, the new technology, the electronics program. She goes, you have an impressive resume. She goes, you tweak this. She goes, I don't know why you want to do nursing, but if you come back after talking to Frank and you decide, okay, I want to become a nurse, then I'm going to send you to school to become a nurse. So anyhow, make a long story short, I went there. The guy saw my resume. He's like, you know what? He goes, I'll give you some CNC machining, some electronics, some welding, some this, some, everything to round you out. And he goes, you don't have to ever worry about not having a job. And so I listened to him. I said, you know what? Here we go, back in the field, back as a service guy. And I said, here we, back to work. So that's what I did. So I was doing that. And, but prior to that, I had met a guy during the machining part. And I was telling him, about the ghost stories, and things. And he said, well, my brother-in-law is an amateur ghost hunter. And he goes, you should talk to him. He goes, the guy's really fascinated by this. So, I said, okay, I said, have him come over. So he came over, and, he went around the house, and at first he was like, you know what? He goes, it's so hard to find, paranormal evidence. It's hard to even find ghosts. He goes, I've been doing this on and off through my life. He goes, it's not easy. He says, and to get a ghost on camera is really hard. So as he did that, there was a loud boom in the house.
Yeah.
And he's like, what was that? And then he came over, and then he's like, you know what? He goes, you got something going on here. So he kind of got involved. And then when he started hearing the stories, he says, and this is what leads up to the thing. He goes, I know a girl. He goes, she has a gift, but she thinks that it's a curse. She doesn't tell anybody because she's embarrassed. But she said she's really good at it. So he goes, I'll ask her if she wants to come over. She was a psychic. And so I'm not true.
Jay, why don't we do this? Before you go into the psychic story, I want to go ahead and take another break so that you have a chance to tell that story the best and uninterrupted by me. We're going to talk about that. There's a lot more to this story. It's going to go into the next night, I'm sure. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. Have you ever wanted to see a real Masonic lodge or visit a beautiful hotel from the 1800s? GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun, Charvinity, bring you a weekend of paranormal investigations in Rush City, Minnesota. Starting Friday, September 22nd at the historic Grant House and continuing into Saturday, September 23rd at the Jasper Masonic Lodge, we have a lot of options for you to join in on this event. Go to charvinity.com/event-list for full details. Ghost Stories and Beyond returns to Billy's Bar and Grill in Anoka October 4th at 6:30 p.m. Join Char Savoy and myself, Greg Bakun, as we host our special guest, Tom Maurer, who is the Minnesota State Director of MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. So come on out and ask lots of questions about UFOs, UAPs, and of course, aliens. It's $10 a ticket to join in, and we'll see you October 4th at 6:30 p.m. at Billy's in Anoka. Don't forget, burgers will be half price.
Reach your highest level of consciousness and well-being with metamorphosisconnections.com. Metamorphosisconnections.com is an online directory of the best holistic and metaphysical practitioners to help you make your most informed choices. You can search metamorphosisconnections.com for classes, events, wellness and life coaches, plus metaphysical products and shops. You can also search for a wide array of healers from all modalities, including EFT, sound healing, energy healing, light therapy, ancestral healing, shamanic healing, reflexology, past life regressions, hypnotherapy, yoga, and more. And if you're not sure where to start, the search feature on metamorphosisconnections.com is tailored to help both those who know what they are looking for and those who are just starting. Come explore the possibilities for your higher self by visiting metamorphosisconnections.com. Their experienced practitioners can guide both beginners and those that are already on their spiritual journey. That's metamorphosisconnections.com, your link to direct you on your spiritual transformation.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Partly cloudy tonight with a low of 59, then more sunshine on Tuesday with a high of 78. Scott Mama's Hot Barbecue offers the huge taste of selections like baby back ribs and pulled pork sandwiches out of a little place. Scott Mama's is located just a block west of I-35W off of West Diamond Lake Road in South Minneapolis. Visit their website at scotchamamas.com.
And as we talked about, we're doing Ghost Stories and Beyond again. That's going to be October 4th at Billy's in Anoka. We're talking to Tom Maurer, who is the state director to MUFON. He's been on the program before, and this is a great opportunity to come out, meet somebody who's attached to the Mutual UFO Network, ask questions, have burgers, maybe a drink or two. It's going to be a great time. Like I said, that's October 4th. It's in at 6:30 p.m. and $10 a ticket to get in. We hope to see you there. This week on GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. Tomorrow and Wednesday, we continue our conversation with Jay about the Enfield Demon House. I mean, we're just scratching the surface here on what he's experiencing. We're going to get through as much as we can today. And then Thursday, we are going to be talking with Rob Guttrow. Rob has been on the program many times. I'm not really sure what we're going to talk to him about because he is so well-versed in everything. My guess is that we're going to be talking about animals who are now spirits. I'm really looking forward to that. No show Friday because we're going to be doing our event in Rush City. Don't forget, tickets are still available for the Masonic Lodge event Saturday, September 23rd. Go to charvinity.com. /events-list and find what you need to get tickets. We hope to see you there. We have Jay Yaple with us. We're talking about his house, and we've really been talking about a lot with really some bad stuff that's been going on with the family. Jay, I don't know about you, but I think that we're not really going to get through everything tonight, are we? We're going to have to pick up more of the house tomorrow too.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Where you left off, though, you brought in somebody who had done paranormal investigating, and that they brought in a psychic medium.
Yes. Now, Greg, how much time do we have? Because one thing you know about me, I can talk, so I want to make sure.
I haven't noticed that, Jay. I'm just giving a hard time. We have roughly about 10 minutes, and I can break in and let you know when we have about 2 minutes left, so you know where you're at.
That sounds good, because that's one thing when I start talking about this stuff, I want to get as much out there to help people out there in case of their experience on themselves. So
there's so many pieces to this as well. So yeah,
it is. We haven't even touched the house yet.
No,
we're gonna try the best we can. So now he had brought in a psychic who she didn't. He told me she doesn't feel like she was kind of kept it hidden. So, and I have my theories on psychics, but I had her come in, really nice lady, and she brought her sister in, and her sister knew everything about the house. She actually grabbed a hold of my arm and said, "My sister doesn't know anything about your house." She goes, "I do. I'm not letting you go until we're done." So I said, "You know what?" I said, "You got to let go of my arm." I said, "You're cutting off the circulation." She goes, "I'm not letting you go." So it was kind of a joke, but so what happened was, we went into the basement, and Dave, he kept the camera on, and that's what's great about having some of the guys I had in there. Some of them are really hardcore skeptics, and they wanted, real evidence. They listened, and so Dave was the type of guy. Everywhere he went, he had a camera. So while she went in the basement, she was like, "There's a fire. I can't tell if it's a natural fire or a fire happening." And Dave's like, "What do you mean by natural?" She goes, "You know what I'm saying?" She goes, "Something not from the," she goes, "not a fire that was caused." And so I'm like, so I was getting that she was thinking maybe like a fire, like maybe like a demon or something. I don't know, but she said there's something dark, and went on and she touched a little bit. And as they were about to come up out of the basement, I was in the basement near the freezer, the chest freezer, and I hear out loud in my ear, "Now you've done it, you are going to pay." And at this point,
you've heard a disembodied voice say that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I've heard it before. So I got to the point, where after fighting this thing, I learned never to challenge it. That's the first one. Never challenge something,
right,
even if you think it's your long lost cousin Billy. I said, "You know what?" I told it in other words to go pound sand. Like gonna go take a hike, because I'm not gonna give it any attention or any notoriety. So when it said, "Now you are going to pay, you've done it," I said, "You know what? Go, take a hike." In other words. So as soon as that happened, Dave had shut off his camera and went to turn to go up the stairs. Now at that point, you can tell if somebody's faking something or if it's real. All of a sudden, this woman, right, Greg, she just drops, boom, right in the ground. Drops. She grabs her throat. Her face is literally like she's gasping for air. She's losing oxygen, right? So now we're running over her, and she's gasping for air, like she wasn't choking. And we got her up out of the basement and got her outside, got fresh air. And when she could catch up, she said, "I can't go in that house no more." She goes, as soon as Dave took off that camera, she goes, "I felt like somebody grabbed my jaw, pulled it open," and she goes, "It felt like they were pouring sand or concrete down my throat into my lungs." She goes, "I couldn't take one gasp of air." She goes, "I was about to go out." And she goes, "This thing is dark."
It could have killed her.
Yeah. Yeah, and if we didn't act quickly and get her out of there, who knows what could have happened? We probably would have had, unfortunately, maybe another spirit in the house. So that's when Dave realized, you know what? And her sister's like, I knew it. She goes, Jay, she goes, I knew it. I told her not to come in the house. And she goes, now this is what happens. So that, and then after that, that's a series of events that happened. It was my brother. Well, first it starts up with Mike, the attorney. That hit me hard. He was a great guy. He was a barrel full of laughs, awesome guy. The type of guy you just want to hang out, even at a ball game. And we used to laugh and tell jokes almost all day long. Sometimes he was. So now I lose him.
Yep.
And then my brother, Elka's dog, and then my sister. And it was just like, you know what, and even when I went to school, it was like in the summer. The director came up to me and said, hey, Jay, I know you've been through a lot. I know you did things in the service and stuff. He goes, but this is your brother. This is your family. He goes, you're not going to be able to concentrate on school. I said, listen, people know me. I was like, I have to do this. I have to get out of my head. Otherwise, I'm a deep thinker. And I said, I have to do something. So he said, you know what? He goes, take the summer off. He goes, come back. He goes, and do welding. He goes, try welding. He goes, get your mind on something. Be creative. He goes, I know it's hard, but if you insist on doing something, he says, take up welding for the summer. Have some fun this way. You don't have to worry about it. He goes, if you want to take a day off because you can't, that's fine. He goes, and then in the fall, he goes, we'll start you into the electronic, into the other areas. So I was like, okay. So, but I was devastated. That was the worst year ever. And
absolutely.
So now this entity didn't realize I'm not going to run. I'm persistent now. I know one thing, the battle lines are drawn. I'm not going to challenge this thing because I seen what happened to a paranormal investigator that did challenge it. And to this day, I found out he still is severely messed up over what happened to him in 2007 by challenging this entity. So I learned not to challenge him. Yeah. I learned even from Lorraine Warren when she called here that time, that it was the worst thing that this guy could have done.
You had Lorraine Warren call you about the house.
Well, they called her. There was the guys that were in here. They worked very closely with her.
Okay.
And when they witnessed a 230-pound woman get picked up and thrown like a rag doll by 8 feet, and they had her on standby, and they went down, and one of the guys, Orlando, I'm not going to mention their last names because they're really good people, and he said, you got to make the phone call, Joe. And Joe says, I know. So he had called Lorraine. She was on standby. And he explained what happened. He goes, Lorraine, people getting scratched. Things are levitating. He went into detail. But Lorraine was really smart. And she's really, really, really remarkable woman. And she said, they had her on speakerphone. She says, you're leaving something out. She goes, what aren't you telling me? And Joe looked at Orlando, and Orlando says, she knows, you got to tell her. And he says, Lorraine, it picked up my investigator who was standing by the door, and it came out of the kids' room and threw her like a rag doll about 8 feet. And she said, anybody see this? And there was an ordained minister in the room. He saw it. When we ran upstairs, we heard the smash, pow, and they called Lorraine. They called us up there, and the girl was almost unconscious, and her camera's blown across the room. Mm-hmm. I looked at the ordained minister. His face is white as a sheet. And so Lorraine says, after she heard all this, she says, I am so sorry. She goes, I cannot put one foot in that house. She goes, tell the family I will talk to them by phone. But she goes, I cannot come to the house. I cannot put one foot in the house. And they begged her. They said, Lorraine, my sweet friend, they said, I'm so sorry, Joe, Orlando. She goes, this is a house. She goes, I can't come in. She goes, I'm so sorry. And to the day she passed away, she never came here. And they asked her many times. I know Orlando had talked to them many times. And as we were getting ready for the show, I was going back through some of the old notes and some of the texts, and I came across a text where Orlando was talking to her nephew. I don't want to mention their names because privacy, but I said to him, I said, "What does Lorraine think is in the house?" Because they went back and forth. It wasn't like a cut and dry thing. It went on for months where they were trying to get answers, and he said a demon. He goes, a very powerful one, and he goes, I'm not done with you, Jay. Yeah, he goes, I'm talking with her nephew and people like that. And that was the last time I heard from Orlando, because he got so affected by this house. I mean, he challenged the house, and that's what he should never have did. He asked this entity to take him on, because he said, "Why are you picking on women and children?" Now he had headphones on, and he heard them saying when they were trying to have a guy go through channeling, and they said, "There's many of us in here," and he got mad. I don't know what happened. He's been doing it since the '80s, and he slipped, and that's all it takes is one slip, guys.
Absolutely.
And he slipped, and he said,
Jay, I'm going to have to, let's cut it off for tonight because we're running out of time. As you can see, folks, there's a lot that we have to talk about. Jay, thank you so much for what we've got through so far. Let's pick it up tomorrow, right, Jay?
That sounds good, Greg.
Thank you so much, everybody. Join us tomorrow for more about the Enfield Demon House. Have a good night.
Have a good night, guys.
Hey, Minnesota, it's your favorite sexy liberal. Join me and my fellow cohorts in liberal justice weekdays from 8 to 11 on AM 950 KTNF, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Sorry to cut you off.
Oh, that's okay.